This is the Ripple Effect of Wellbeing in Work and Life. I'm Dr. Ken Thompson, here with Dr. Stephanie Romero.
On this show, we explore how holistic well-being practices can transform our individual lives and our collective capacity for care.
We're bringing you the science, the stories, and the specific practices that reduce stress and build resilience in our homes, our offices, and our communities.
We're talking to people to see how their perspectives, practices, and work are creating a ripple effect for a better world.
Thanks for joining us.
I'm so excited for today's conversation with Stephanie Miller. Stephanie has been immersed in music since she was 5 years old, growing up in a musical family, and today using that lifelong passion to help support healing. Stephanie wears many hats. She's a film composer, she plays in the acoustic electronic band Steve and the Millers, and she facilitates high-energy, community-driven drum circles. She also brings her therapeutic harp music into hospitals, schools, and the lives of students at Western Pennsylvania School for the Blind. We're talking today about the science of sound healing, what it actually feels like to experience vibroacoustic harp therapy, and how rhythm connects us all. I am so excited to have this collaborator of Awaken today on the show for a good conversation about how we can support healing in our community. Stephanie, I always love to start these conversations asking people what their path to practice has been. So I know you have a practice as an artist, and you also have a practice as a meditator. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit about and how that came together, right?
Sure. Well, for me, music, playing music specifically and writing music is a meditative process. And it's been that way for me forever. Like I can't remember a time where I didn't feel some kind of connection. Even when I was small and didn't necessarily have the words, the feeling was still there. So I grew up in a very musical family, and that was a great thing to have, and kind of fostered that connection even further. When I was going through an illness, I really found a nice group to work with, or meditate with, the Three Rivers Dharma. And at the time they were on Craig Street, and it was led by John Bogard. And what I liked about the meditation there is it involved chant. So you have a mantra, and we would chant, and that was the main part of what we were doing. And it was a perfect way to start your Sunday. And it really helped me between, my already connection with music, to use the mantra as a way to get out of my headspace of thinking about the illness, thinking about anything, because I can overthink. I'm a good overthinker. And having the chant along with hearing everybody else chant and the nice atmosphere could really help me, probably for the first time, really feel like I was meditating, as in the way other people think of meditation. So that's...
Yeah. Well, it's Pittsburgh, so I know and love John, and have attended Three Rivers Dharma in the past when they were there in Craig Street as well.
Yeah.
So that, that warms my heart thinking about him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that tradition that John practices in is a Tibetan
Right.
tradition. And I also absolutely love mantra practice and also that group practice.
Yeah.
It just lifts you up, right?
Yeah. Yep. And it's you just feel surrounded, at least at the time, surrounded by people who care.
Yeah.
Because we got to socialize some, and then just be together, all chanting together for peace for all beings. It's just a lovely experience.
Awesome. And how did you find that? How did you come upon that?
Well, I can't exactly remember because it was several years ago now, over almost 2 decades. But um, I was looking for meditation. You know, the doctors are saying meditation is good, and I knew I was having difficulty doing it on my own. At least what I thought at the time was meditation. And so when I found that there was something on Sundays and I knew where to get there because I was still relatively new to Pittsburgh, I went. And that's kind of how I found it.
Awesome. And so you were talking a little bit about how writing music feels like a meditation.
Hmm.
What could you describe, like, so for folks out there that maybe don't write
Hmm.
or play an instrument, what is that for you? And now that you like have also this other kind of meditation practice, how does that connect?
Yeah, every musical artist is different and does their own process. So this is just mine. But I often just can hear things in my mind. And I try to bring them out onto the harp. Sometimes I'm lucky enough to hear uh, like several instruments play together. Most of the time it's instrumental, but there have been a few times where I feel like I've had just a almost like a download of a melody and lyrics. It's rare, but it's happened a couple times for me. But one of the things that I did, especially growing up, is I would just sit at the piano and just play, hear different sounds, try to replicate things I've heard, and then when I couldn't quite do that, make up my own stuff and run with that. And so there's different ways that I have approached writing music and feeling that as a meditation. But once I get started trying to get something down, either I hear something and I purposely sit down at my harp or the piano or whatever to get things out, or conversely, I might just start noodling on whatever instrument and see what comes of it, and go from there. And I can lose lots of time, probably the most time, playing music. Yeah, and I feel like really grateful that I met Steve Sciulli and, of course, my husband, Robert Miller. And we formed a band that's all improvisation, and that's kind of our meditation that we share with others. So the fourth Sunday of the month at Rooted in Sound in Aspinwall, it's a studio space and sound healing space as well. We get together. Steve plays flutes and synthesizers. My husband's hammered dulcimer. We have drum. I have the harp, a flute, voice, and just for a nice hour, we just play music and improvise together. And it's somewhat one of the experiences similar to what we've done it through Awaken a few times, where it's just Bob and myself. But this one includes Steve, and our band's called Steve and the Millers, not to be confused with the Steve Miller Band.
That's awesome. I love it. How
Yeah.
wonderful. So you kind of talked about losing time,
Hmm.
and I'm just thinking of like that concept of flow. And I've often
Yeah.
heard people talk about meditation or a meditative state and flow is kind of a really similar thing. I'm not
Hmm.
sure that I believe they're exactly the same
Right.
because flow often happens when you're achieving something or doing something, right? And meditation is, for me at least, a non-doing.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? But the feeling, maybe the actual embodied feeling might be the same. I don't know what you think about that.
Hmm. Yeah. Sometimes depending, you you're almost lost. I don't know if dissociation sounds very positive, but just like you're so in it, you're everything and nothing at the same time. It's very hard to describe. So that's where I feel like maybe fits a little bit more with the definition of doing nothing. But by doing, I'm doing nothing because I've crowded everything else out, or listening to whatever it is that I can't explain, but just the things that come into my mind like lots of creatives have said over the centuries. Just things just come. Uh, so yeah,
Yeah, the muse, right?
the muse, yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
well, I love the way you talked about that because that idea of like, it just made me think of in meditation, we have that idea of one pointed awareness, single
Hmm.
focus awareness, where
Yeah,
you're just totally on one thing. And that feels right to me. Like what you're
yeah.
describing feels like,
Hmm.
yes, that's meditation
Hmm.
in some forms of
Yeah.
meditation.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, maybe shifting gears a tiny bit, I know you do a lot of work in your professional life integrating music and healing. So I'm
Yes.
just curious, like, how you came upon bringing those two together, and yeah, how has that happened for you?
Well, I was fortunate enough to, in college, have a harp instructor that was trained as a therapeutic musician and kind of recognized something in me during lessons where I would, improvise my own music that was, simple and gentle, and just thought, hey, you might want to look at this field and see what you think. So I've kind of followed in her footsteps. I trained through the Music for Healing and Transition program, which trains musicians, not just harpists, all kinds of musicians come and learn how to use music at the bedside to provide a healing environment. As we know, our bodies heal the best themselves, and they need a safe environment to do that. And when you're in a hospital, it's a borrowed space, you're not at home, there's lots of beeps and sounds and other things, and just to have that special moment of someone coming to provide music at the bedside can just provide that sense of calm. And you've seen in studies the heart rates can go down. You can even see it on monitors, which is amazing. If say the heart rate was high, you can see it come down, blood pressure. It's pretty amazing just using music at the bedside. And Gloria Galante, my teacher in college, also was a vibroacoustic harp therapy trained practitioner. And so she told me about both, and I kind of put it in my back pocket for a while and was like, I don't know. And then eventually it just clicked, and I was able to do both. But the vibroacoustic harp therapy involves a vibrotactile unit. There's different styles. I have at the Veterans Hospital where I work a nice chair that'll put you into zero gravity if you want. I have some mats that are flat, and I have a pillow, and I'm hoping to get some more pillows soon to use that you can place on different parts of the body. And what's nice about that is you're getting the vibration as well as hearing the music, and it can really help you get out of your head in the way that I was describing playing music. If you're feeling it and hearing it, that kind of grabs your attention in a different way to help you relax and let go.
So as a total layperson, can you
Mm-hmm.
tell me what is a vibroacoustic harp? Is that different than a regular harp? Like what?
Sure. Well,
Yeah.
the difference is that the process involves just a regular harp with a caveat of having some kind of input. So, if anyone's familiar with a guitar jack, I have a similar jack on the harp, and that connects through a cord to an amplifier mixer that goes into the chair, which has embedded speakers. So there's speakers in the chair, and that's what makes it the vibrotactile experience. Um, so the harp itself is pretty much a regular harp, just has to have amplification and possibilities in some way. So pickups installed, and that's the difference there.
That makes so much sense. Thanks for explaining that. I
Sure, of
was like,
course.
I'm
Sorry.
not sure. No, no, totally. Sometimes when we talk about what we do, we know what we do. So we
Right.
need we need someone completely ignorant like myself to be like, "Huh, what was that?" But yeah, that's amazing. I can imagine experiencing that would be really, really wonderful because I've experienced your harp,
Yeah.
not in a vibrating chair situation, but yeah, that would really be wonderful. Um, So when a person is in that session, how long do you usually work with an individual in a session like that?
Well, it depends on people's tolerance and what's beneficial in the moment. So typically, study wise, it's suggested to have at least 10 minutes. It's 10 minutes where they see a lot of different like changes in the body physiologically. You can see the blood pressure go down. It's about 10 minutes is average for live music or otherwise with vibrotactile. So it could be short as that, or could go up to an hour. Typically, I do about 45 minutes. And that's incorporating time to settle in at the beginning, the play time, and then some time at the end. So it's not 45 minutes of continuous playing, but it gives us a nice cushion of time and a good chunk of music in the middle.
Great. So, I know that you're using this, you said, with folks at the VA. I'm just curious, what do you understand is actually happening with people with things like chronic pain or PTSD, anxiety?
Hmm.
What physiologically is happening to help alleviate that? And also, I'm just a researcher by nature, I think. And I'm curious, like, is there some like dose, like you said, 10 minutes, but does it have to be repeated a certain number of times? Like, I'm really curious about the physiology of it and also like how often would someone have to do that?
Yeah, sure. So with vibroacoustic harp therapy, often the emphasis is on the lower notes of the harp, and that's because the lower sounds penetrate matter better. And the example I usually give is, say you're at a light in your car, and 5 cars back, there's someone playing their subwoofer, and you can feel it in your chest, and it's 5 cars away. But that low frequency goes through all that metal into your bones, you can feel it. So the lower strings are usually perceived more by those who are coming for the therapy. And I get the feedback from the client, the veteran, whoever I'm seeing, of what notes feels good to them. Sometimes there'll be a note that they can identify that resonates with an area of pain, so I know I can focus on it. So if it's middle C, just to pick out a number, it helps with back pain, then I'm going to focus on that. I may drone, which is repeating the note often, find keys that highlight that note in the key signature, those types of things. But I'll still play the whole range of the harp, because even if we're not perceiving it physically, all the sounds, the frequencies are still going through the chair, it's still going into your body. But I do tailor it to focus on what the person perceives and what feels good to them. So I'm improvising so as not to have music that elicits different memories, that might come up. Maybe, you have a song that you had with your high school sweetheart and you broke up. You don't want to hear that song when you're trying to relax. That's just one example. But so the low frequencies matter. And the vibration disturbs the neuropain pathways. It can help reroute things. Kind of, if you think of like a TENS unit type of thing, the vibration kind of stimulates your body. And the tuning that I use emphasizes the 40 hertz, which is the lowest note on my harp. And the reason why I tune it a little bit differently than I would, say, if I'm working with Steve and the Millers, my band, it's, for those who know this, A440 is the typical tuning note for Western music. And so I tune a little bit lower than that so that my lowest note can get as close to 40 hertz as I can. And the reason why is because in studies, in brain scans, they found that 40 hertz corresponds with sleep, memory, meditation, those types of responses. And it's particularly interesting because studies have shown that those who are dealing with dementia, when they do the brain scans, it's harder to find 40 hertz in those scans, which is very interesting. So there's different things with, if you look it up with light therapy of 40 hertz, and then, vibratory. So I figure if I'm using the harp tuned in that way to be as close to 40 hertz as I can, that hopefully that's offering some benefit to our bodies, hopefully reminding ourselves, our physicalness, that, oh yeah, this is great. I'm gonna start resonating like this. That's just a theory, but I'd love to study that. And the nice thing is, there's no contraindications to playing your notes a little bit lower. It's not going to hurt anything. I'm the only one who's going to know. So that's kind of some things that I'm doing to try and help support ourselves in that 40 hertz and that state.
Oh, that's just fascinating. And now, after the podcast, everyone's gonna know. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding with you. Whoever's listening will know. Yeah, it's so fascinating. You talked a little bit about you know, perceived notes might be feeling good in the body, or perceived notes, may bring up a memory and might not be feeling good to the person. I'm just curious, like, so I was asking about dosage, like how frequently do you work with folks? Do you get to
Right.
work with the same people
Mm-hmm.
repeatedly? How does that work?
Yeah, well, what I've kind of based the starting point on is a pilot study that was done in Canada by Ian Hepburn, and he specifically was working with patients dealing with fibromyalgia. And what he did was he had people come weekly for 5 weeks, 20-minute sessions for 5 weeks. And it was twice a week. So I kind of try to, if somebody can come twice a week, I try to replicate that, just because I was fortunate enough to study my class for vibroacoustic harp therapy training, had a gentleman whose mother participated in this study, and his mother was pain-free for an entire year with her fibromyalgia symptoms just from doing that twice a week for 5 weeks in the study. That was, obviously a very profound response, but everybody in the study had some kind of benefit. And when you have chronic pain like that, even if it's just a few hours of relief, it can be worth it to go in, especially because it's non-pharmaceutical. You can use it with other therapies. It's not going to interact. So that's kind of what I try to aim for, like about 8 sessions or so. But it depends on the person, obviously schedule. A lot of times with the veterans I'm seeing them about once a week. And it just depends. Some people have seen me for a while and then their back pain is gone and I don't see them again. They're doing other things, and if they need a tune-up, they'll come back. Other people have it more as part of kind of their spiritual or meditation practice and will keep coming back as they're finding the benefit. I'm thinking of a particular veteran who has severe PTSD and over time has really found it to be part of their spiritual practice. They feel closer to peace and that connection. And so it just depends on what the person's goal is, how they're responding. It might have to be shorter for somebody who has pain and maybe needs to adjust. Maybe you have to do a few minutes, get up, go back to the chair. It just depends.
Cool, thank you for that. I'm also very intrigued. So we've been talking about all your work with the harp,
Mm-hmm.
but I know you and Bob lead drum circles.
Oh, yes.
And for me, the idea of the harp is very I don't know, classical music, like the image of the harp, right? And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
beautiful paintings with angels and things
Yes.
like
Yeah.
that. But drum circle is much more, like something primal. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's like a
Sure.
totally different kind of modality and
Yes.
musical experience. So I would love for you to talk about like one, how did you get into drum and drum circle? And I also feel like so much healing can happen with the drum, especially when we think about now some of the information we have on trauma healing and
Yeah.
that bilateral stimulation and the repetitive nature of the drumming. Like I would just love one to hear how you got into it and two like the what you know and what you've experienced.
Yeah, sure. Well, we have to thank my husband, Robert Miller, for getting me into drum circle facilitation. In college, he uh, worked for his thesis on drumming and to see if it lowered cortisol, drumming and toning specifically. And he did find that both of those modalities lower cortisol, but the group that did the most, reduced the most, were toning and drumming was involved together. So
Can
that
you
was his thesis.
can you explain what toning is, please?
Oh, sure, of course. Toning is when you hold out a sound for longer periods of time. It's not a melody. You don't have to have any singing abilities. You're just holding out a note. And it can be very relaxing just to do that. You've got the breath involved. And then, of course, we talked about group experience with meditation, coming together in a group. Maybe you might be a little shy doing things on your own, but everybody's doing it. So you're not going to notice one person, doing it together. But that's what toning is.
Yeah, so how are you using drum circle? What's your experience been with it? I'd love to hear some more about that.
Sure. I'm lucky enough to train with Jim Donovan and Arthur Hall. They're two different drum circle facilitator trainings, which are great. And they really focus on community and fostering an environment where you don't have to have any musical skills at all. You don't have to know any specific drumming traditions. It's coming together and using sound to create community, really. And you can have different intentions, like we've done with Awaken and having more of a meditation. You could have it be more just getting together and having fun. As facilitators, we're trained to help the group do their best to groove together, but the goal is not to teach a specific rhythm or make the facilitator the focus. It's to help the group. So once the group is gelling, we don't intervene as much anymore. So we may help, especially in the beginning of, helping the group really listen in to each other. Because sometimes when you come, maybe you're like, oh, I got some chops. I'm just going at it, and you're not necessarily listening to the group, right? Nothing wrong with having chops. But as a facilitator, to create that feeling of community and help the group sound good, we may have stops and starts so that you can hear that. We're not telling you to listen to the group, but you're getting that experience by having it stop and then start again. Stop and start again. And it helps gel. We may have times where we'll invite, it's always an invitation, never a command, to have people close their eyes while they're drumming to get a different listening experience. Might have the suggestion of whatever you're doing, just drop one part of it out and then drop another part of it out and then bring it back in as different ways to facilitate that listening. And it's really amazing the different responses that you'll get from having, when you close your eyes, getting that visual field out of the way, how the listening deepens, how you get a little more into your body. Those types of things are some responses that we can have. And sometimes we'll just have silly things like rubber chickens. And they make these silly noises. And everybody can have one if they want or not. And drumming and sounds and chickens and pigs and all kinds of things just to get that laughter, especially as adults. We sometimes are so serious and we just need to let go. And there's nothing like a rubber chicken to make you laugh. So thank you, Michael Deaton, for sharing that with us. And we've done it, haven't looked back. Chickens, pigs, everybody wants to know when they're coming back. It's very rarely anybody has had a poor experience with the chickens. So you can use drumming for any of those things.
I love that. I love the rubber chickens. There was a period, I think when my kid was a teenager, where we had a series of rubber chicken dog toys, and that was like our favorite to play with the dogs with
Yeah,
the rubber chickens. You're right.
exactly.
You can't not enjoy a rubber chicken.
Hmm. Just a little sound. We only have a little chick that goes squeak. You know, it's
Yeah.
so tiny, everyone just giggles. It's like,
Yeah.
what is this?
Yeah,
And,
that's awesome. Well,
yeah.
you had mentioned having eyes closed, and I know you've also worked at Western Pennsylvania School for the Blind.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, and so I would love to just hear about yeah, what it's like to teach young people that are probably more attuned with the auditory than
Hmm.
seeing folks. And yeah, talk a little bit about your work with those kids.
Oh, sure. Well, I was invited to provide vibroacoustic harp therapy services there, so I wasn't a staff member per se. But when I did come to provide services with my travel mat, I saw all different age groups, and some were more group and some were more individual sessions. I did have a student come who was both deaf and blind, and when they were on the mat, they were able to feel the vibration, and just the smile from ear to ear of just having that input was amazing to see. And this particular student had some other physical things going on where it was hard for them to stay still, some spastic movements, involuntary movements. And when they were on the mat, they were able to be still for that time. And it wasn't a long time that the student was on there, but the like 5 to 7 minutes they had, you could see the smile, you could see the relaxation in the muscles, and the main thing, the caregivers with them were just blown away. Said, I can never get the student to stay still in class or whatever, and just that the vibroacoustic experience could offer that for them was just huge, and it was noticed. I had a group of little ones, so 3, 4 years old. I put the mats on the floor, and they sat on the mats together, and we sang, you know, Twinkle Twinkle I played, and they could feel it, and some different experiences like that. It was great. I had an older student who was about to graduate come, who was a fantastic vocalist, and so they would hum along as they were laying on the mat, and just a really nice experience that way. So different ways of interacting there.
I love that. That's especially the story with the kiddo who was deafblind. What a wonderful, wonderful
Hmm.
experience for the kiddo and for you.
Yeah, yeah, it was very nice to see.
Awesome. Um, I am just curious, Stephanie, is there anything you wanted to talk about that you think maybe I didn't ask about that you wanted to share?
I could just share a few more stories with you if you'd like.
Absolutely.
Okay, so with the vibroacoustic harp therapy, it's amazing to see the responses people have. You never know until you go through the process, obviously, but I've had a couple that were pretty remarkable that I wanted to share with you. I had someone who had had surgery and wasn't able to feel their toes, and just a 5-minute demo, because it was a demonstration at the facility, the person was able to move their toes for the first time in 2 years. It was just 5 minutes at the most. It was
That's
one song. It
amazing.
was a demo. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was blown away. And this person, dance was very important to them. And they were
Yeah.
really bummed out, obviously, that they had this come up from surgery, and just to be able to wiggle them, even if just a little bit, was huge. And who knows what would have happened if we could have kept going, but just that little bit of time. I had someone who was a massage therapist who couldn't receive massage because of fibromyalgia have vibroacoustic harp therapy and called it massage that was deep tissue but didn't cause any pain for her, which is a great endorsement because they would know. But I had a veteran that I saw come in, and they had a cane and had a lot of difficulty that particular week getting around. Sometimes they could have a cane, sometimes they couldn't, but that particular day was rough. They came in, sat down, did the session, they got up, standing taller, felt better. We said goodbye, he walked out. Next thing I know, there's a knock at the door. It's like, I forgot my cane. It's like both didn't even notice that he
Yeah,
had his
that's
cane.
amazing.
And it's
Yeah.
just, and he's like, this is unheard of. Another veteran come in with a previous injury where he had a broken spine. Couldn't, take his shoes off very easily, and he wanted to get comfortable, and he just kind of had the weight of the world on him. Sat in the chair, got up. The weight, you could see, was lifted. He seemed to be standing up a little bit straighter too. He was moving, saying, oh, I don't have that much pain. And he started putting on his shoes, but he was standing. And he said, look at me putting on my shoes like I have no problems. That was his first session.
Wow.
The next week he came back, and before we got started, he's like, can I share something with you? I said, of course. And he said, with tears, he started crying. He said, I've been pain-free for 6 days since I saw you. I'm starting to have a little pain now, but I've been pain-free. That has not happened in 2 years. So there's these great responses that happen for some people that are just amazing. And I'm hoping to continue this work. Hopefully find somebody. If you're out there and you research and you want to research this with me, please reach out, because I just think these things are so phenomenal, and I want to share this, my passion, to get this out to the world to help people.
Yeah, those are some really amazing stories. It also was making me think as you were talking, like, in some ways in my mind, it's something very passive and not like a lot happening, like you're playing and they're receiving, but I'm sure you also feel in some way that you are holding space for so much for them,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
I'm sure they share a lot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had another veteran who came, who had a particular difficulty with visualization, say like daydreams and stuff like that, and it had been a while. And after seeing me, it had been several months, but they told me they had a visualization. They felt like they were in this very peaceful place, and they hadn't done that in years. And it was after that experience they reconnected with their writing practice and started getting back to writing, because they just hadn't been able to before. And I'm so glad that coming over months offered that space to them to reconnect with themselves and that ability, and then to feel that confidence to get back to writing again. It's huge.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story too. I know journaling can be so healing for so many people, so that's a
Hmm.
really beautiful gift.
Yeah.
So I love to end all my episodes by asking if folks have any resources or books that either have supported you on your journey or that you just want to recommend to the
Hmm.
folks listening. Is there anything that you would like to share?
Yeah. One of the books that really helped me out when I was going through a difficult time is called The Fourfold Way, and it's by Dr. Angeles Arena. That's Angeles. Her last name is Arrien. So sorry, I'm sure I pronounced that completely wrong. But the book is really great. The author is an anthropologist, and she set out to research different indigenous practices across the world and put together this book of the common themes from the different indigenous practices that she studied with indigenous people and learned about, that was appropriate to share. And so in this book, it's Fourfold Way because there's different archetypes that came up in her research. And there's the warrior, the healer, the visionary, and the teacher. And it's kind of like a workbook, and you can go through it and do different things. And actually, this is probably the one where I first did my meditation, now that I'm thinking about it, because there's different practices in here that involve meditation, and they'll walk you through it. So I highly recommend, if anyone's interested in these things, to give this a try, because it goes through these different things from indigenous culture, but it also leads to a path to getting to know yourself and forgiveness. There was a big theme of letting go of guilt and shame in the book, and it definitely helped me out, especially as a young 20-something when I came across this book.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thanks for taking the time to share your wisdom and passion for what you do. It was great to deepen our relationship in this way and learn more about you. And yeah, I'm grateful that you're here in Pittsburgh doing this work in our communities.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad that we've worked together, and I really appreciate all of your support that you've given us in Music for Life of Pittsburgh. And if anybody wants to find us, we're musicforlifepgh.com.
Absolutely.
Yep, and also if you want to come to the Steve and the Millers, it's steveandthemillers.com. So either way, you can reach out for us, look at our different events. For Sunday, we have our kind of, for lack of a better term, sound bath. I think we call it Etheric Sound Journey with Steve and the Millers. And then the third Friday of the month in Aspinwall, same place, we have our community drum circle. Anybody's welcome, all ages, 7 to 8:30.
Awesome. Yeah, I encourage everyone to check it out because it's an awesome experience. Thank you, Stephanie.
Oh, thank you.